What's up, everybody? This is Alex from Fireside Giants and Empire Sports Media Production, and you're listening to the Fireside Giants podcast. If you are a die-hard Giants fan, you've come to the right place. Daily episodes, interviews, draft content, and so much more. Make sure to drop a like and subscription below on YouTube, and don't forget to leave a comment. We love to engage with everyone. And yesterday, just minding my own business, doing a normal stuff, covering the Giants, talking about some offensive coordinators, getting really excited about Mike Kafka and Pep Hamilton, and we're going to discuss those two and Chad O'Shea from the Cleveland Browns and discuss, what it is they would bring individually to this team as an offensive coordinator. I'm looking at it, just looking at those guys. Everything seems normal. And then Brian Flores drops a bombshell on the NFL and includes the Giants in this racial bias, situation. And I do want to discuss that. I do want to give you guys any details that have been brought up and really what is going on here. It is a very interesting situation. Brian Flores obviously is saying that he was treated unfairly with the process of hiring that the Giants conducted. Bill Belichick released some text messages, or rather Flores released text messages from Brian Flores, from Bill, and it really throws everything up in the air. It's really, really interesting. I don't really know what to make of it. We're just going to give you guys the details. You guys can, battle it out in the comments section and let us know what you think. But ultimately, this is going to be a very long process. We're going to see a lot of court probably proceedings, and the Giants are going to be involved. And this is not how Joe Schoen probably wanted to start off his tenure with Big Blue. And in fact, this is probably the exact opposite of how he wanted to start things off. So definitely a wild day. Did not see this one coming, Anthony. But before we dive into all of this stuff that we have to discuss, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing all right, and I think this stuff with Brian Flores is interesting. I think this is going to be a very long process for the New York Giants, for that organization. The consequences of something like this can be very serious. This could be really, really bad for the Giants organization. From what I understand, this could forfeit draft picks. This could have very significant fines attached to the organization's name. So, of course, they'll get down to it. They'll figure out what really happened, and I guess the NFL and maybe even the court systems will make a final decision in terms of any disciplinary actions. But right now, I think the Giants, from what I've seen, Joe Schoen has kind of like refused to really comment on it. He's chosen not to comment on it. I know the Giants released their statement, the Dolphins released a statement, the Broncos released a statement, but right now everyone's just kind of being very tight-lipped and careful about what they're saying. So the Giants, I expect to continue with that philosophy, just be very tight-lipped, not say too much, and just kind of let things play out on its own through the courts, through the NFL's appeal system, and everything like that.
Yeah, look, Joe Schoen basically said the only thing he did say was, "I believe that our coaching process was done correctly." So the Giants, I imagine, will stand by that. But Brian Flores, this is a really just a crazy situation altogether. A lot of people are talking about it, the main news channels and everything. And he went on CBS this morning, which was Wednesday morning, for listening to this on another day, and he said it was a range of emotions after he was told by Bill Belichick that he actually wasn't the one he was supposed to text. He meant to text Brian Daboll to congratulate him on getting the job or landing it, or it's up to him. And I'll read you the text so you can determine, what you feel. But he said it was a range of emotions: humiliation, disbelief, anger. I worked so hard to get where I am in football today, to become a head coach, to go in on what was a sham interview. I was hurt. So Brian Flores has pretty much come to the conclusion that this interview was a sham, and that the Giants were simply trying to adhere by the Rooney Rule requirements, which is you have to interview two minority head coaching candidates before you can hire a head coach. And they brought in Leslie Frazier. Patrick Graham doesn't count because he was an in-house candidate, and they brought in Brian Flores. So this is what Bill Belichick had to say about it. It's a little damning. It definitely makes him look like an idiot, and I don't know if he has a flip phone or a phone from 1962, a Walkman or something, but the guy just completely missed the mark on this. I don't know where he got his information from. I don't know what Bill is talking about, where he heard anything about Daboll getting the job before Flores even interviewed. This is just a whole mess, right? And just to want to throw this out, John Mara, or John Mara, whatever, John Mara decided he wanted to step away from kind of having the power of hiring a head coach. He wanted to give Schoen the authority in that process. And the second he does that, it gets blown up in his face. I find it actually kind of, I don't know if it's karma, but whatever it might be, Mara, it just blew up in his face, giving someone else a little bit of power. But this is what Bill Belichick had to say to Brian Flores accidentally. He says, "Sounds like you have landed. Congrats." And Brian Flores responds, "Did you hear something I didn't hear?" And he was like, "Giants, question mark, exclamation point. I interview on Thursday," Flores said. "I think I have a shot at it." And he was like, "Got it. I hear from Buffalo and New York Giants that you are their guy. Hope it works out if you want it to." He's like, "That's definitely what I want. I hope you're right, coach. Thank you." And then he goes, "Coach, are you talking to Brian Flores or Brian Daboll? Just making sure." And he goes, "Sorry, I messed up. I double checked and I misread the text. I think they're naming Daboll. I'm sorry about that." And he goes, "Thanks, Bill." And this is literally before Flores had ever interviewed on Thursday. Mara had specifically reached out to Flores prior to all of this happening to indicate to him that he thought he was a finalist for this job and that he was going to be there. The Giants said in a statement yesterday that Flores was involved until the 11th hour. They don't know what Bill Belichick was talking about. But Bill Belichick, having his connections, I don't think that he would just randomly text somebody that, "Oh, Daboll got the job," or he's just randomly texting people, "He got the job, like, congratulations." That seems very sketchy to me. But at the end of the day, I don't know where Belichick got this information from. He could have got it from someone from Buffalo who didn't know what they were talking about. Until we figure that out, this is all just hearsay. It's all just nonsense. But at the end of the day, it's definitely a little damning. These text messages are concerning, to say the least. But this is a weird situation the Giants have now found themselves in, right? And then on the other side of it, the Dolphins over here, Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, is out here saying to Brian Flores, "I'll pay you $100K per game to lose on purpose." Now, Brian Flores is saying, "Screw that, I'm going to win. I don't care about that. The ethics of the game, I want to uphold that respect for the game." And I respect the hell out of that for Flores to do that. If this is all true, for the record, I don't know if it's all true. If it is true, and Flores goes and wins games anyway. And I'm like, and then that's why there's this huge hit piece on Flores. Dolphins management, Dolphins ownership is putting out these false reports that he's a disaster in the locker room. He doesn't work well with people, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, now that if this is true that they were trying to pay him to lose games, it definitely contradicts what they were saying. And maybe Flores was really just being put in a bad spot. So who knows? We'll find out all this stuff hopefully in the future when more proof comes out, and we'll see what Flores really has on the Dolphins. But Anthony, hearing this stuff, what Bill Belichick had to say through these text messages, what Flores is now, I guess, taking aim at the Giants organization for racial bias in the Denver Broncos as well. He said that John Elway showed up to their interview like an hour late and he was disheveled. He was drunk. It was just a Rooney Rule exception interview. So this is all really bad, right? If it's true, it's really bad. Now, I don't know if it's true, Anthony. I imagine you also don't know if it's true. So your first reaction to this, what is it? Like, it's hard to really give an explanation or really a reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, if it is true, obviously it's disgusting and inexplicable and inexcusable, but we don't know if it's true. I'm sure, usually I like to say where there's smoke, there is fire. There's probably some aspects of this that are true. Maybe not all of it's true, but there are things in there, especially for the Miami Dolphins, that are particularly damning. Now, the NFL has placed a heavy emphasis on sports betting and partnering with sports betting companies in recent years. And of course, to see the Miami Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, communicating to Brian Flores that he'd give him an additional $100,000 for every game that he intentionally loses. That is maybe the most damning aspect of this entire thing that Brian Flores has brought to the table, because that really kills the integrity of the sport. And that makes everything really muddy for the NFL and its partnerships with betting programs. Like, that is really, really bad. The competitive nature of the sport, the integrity of football needs to be upheld to the highest degree possible. So if that aspect is true, that's really scary and concerning, because if that's something that one owner's doing, it's something that another owner could be doing, and it's something that could be a widespread league issue that we don't even know about. So that's like the most concerning part of all of this, outside of the stuff concerning the Giants. But then, of course, with Brian Flores, he was a qualified candidate, and according to the Giants, he made it until the 11th hour. That's what they said. They said it came down to 12 hours. In the 11th hour, they made the decision. Brian Flores was there neck and neck. And from everything that we understand from all the reports, John Mara did want Brian Flores as the head coach, but Joe Shane preferred Brian Daboll, and I do think that he was a very serious contender. Of course, the things you mentioned with the Broncos as well, John Elway showing up drunk, there's really no way that anybody can verify these sorts of things, but that kind of stuff is just really disappointing to hear. I hope none of that is true. This whole situation is disappointing. It is upsetting. And hopefully, if this stuff is true, I hope that Brian Flores gets his justice, because it's important. This stuff is just, it's fucked up, basically. But hopefully the Giants, are being truthful in the fact that they had a thorough search. and they didn't just have a Rooney Rule interview. I really hope that's not the case. But hopefully, once we get to the bottom of this, the Giants are proven that they didn't do anything wrong. Because if they did, it would honestly pain my heart.
Yeah, I mean, we know the NFL has a lot of systemic issues that need to be corrected. We know nothing will ever be perfect. We can only help, the future generations make change. But Brian Flores is putting his name on the line, guys. Like he just straight up sacrificed his career to get this point across. I have to imagine a guy wouldn't be willing to do that unless he had some justifiable proof and some good reasoning behind what he's accusing these teams of doing. I mean, look, if I work 20, 30, 40 years to get to a job, to get to a point where I'm a head coach of a football team and I sacrificed all of it, put it all on the line for this, he's got to be pretty sure of something. So I'm really curious to see what happens with this. I'm curious to see what the NFL does and what gets uncovered here. This could be changing. This could change the NFL. It could change everything. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, we'll keep you guys updated with any of that. But let's move over to something a little bit more positive. The offensive coordinator position for the Giants. 3 finalists, Mike Kafka, and we got Pep Hamilton, and we got Chad O'Shea. 3 really good candidates. Personally, Pep Hamilton and Mike Kafka are easily and by far away the best of the two. Mike Kafka is the Chiefs quarterback coach and passing game coordinator. They were expecting him to kind of take that jump to OC at some point, but Bieniemy just really hasn't been able to get that head coaching job. So, whether I don't know what it's for, he has a lot of stuff in his past that teams may not like, but ultimately, Kafka is due for an upgrade. He's due for a promotion. And I think that to OC for the Giants would be a great opportunity for him. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And the Giants would be getting another guy who's helped develop an elite quarterback. Having 2 guys on the roster, on the coaching staff, that have had developed elite quarterbacks, Mike Kafka with Patrick Mahomes and Brian Daboll / Shea Tierney, they just hired today. Having those guys develop Josh Allen, that is like the best case scenario. If you want to develop a young quarterback, those are the guys to do it. Like, you can't pick better guys to develop a young quarterback, whether that be Daniel Jones or whether that be another player. There's a lot of buzz around the Senior Bowl about Kenny Pickett, about Malik Willis. Some really great, talented players. And Malik Willis, a lot of people argue with me all the time about him. Personally, I think if he's in the right system with the right coaches, he could be an elite player. But he has all the tangible traits. He's an elite athlete. All of his cons are coachable, decision making, fundamentals, mechanics, footwork, all those things are teachable. You cannot teach what he currently has at a disposal. So I think that might be a big reason the Giants might be enamored by him. I know Joe Shane has looked at him a lot while he was with the Bills. So that should be an intriguing player the Giants might keep their eye on. Next year, Bryce Young, another phenomenal arm talent. Really good pocket presence. He would be a tremendous addition to this team as well. Daniel Jones, who knows? Maybe they developing him into a great player this year, and he kicks ass, and the Giants are like, oh crap, well, we already got our franchise guy. Let's just build around him. Problem is, you got to pay Daniel Jones after this year, so that's a big question mark. That's a big concern. So Mike Kafka would be a great alternative. Pep Hamilton made David Mills, who was a 3rd-round pick this year. He had a better season than Daniel Jones statistically, and he played in 11 games, same amount. I think he had 16 touchdown passes, over 2,500 yards, or almost 2,500 yards passing. He had a 66.8% completion percentage, I believe. David Mills was a good quarterback by all means, because Pep Hamilton was running that offense for Houston. Anthony. So, and then give Pep Hamilton the respect he deserves when it comes to developing Justin Herbert, his breakout rookie season. Pep Hamilton was his QB coach. There's a lot of things to like about Pep Hamilton as well. Tons of experience. His protege was Andrew Luck. So these names that I'm mentioning to you, Andrew Luck, Justin Herbert, he helped Jay Cutler in Chicago. He's been all over the NFL. Then you have Mike Kafka with Patrick Mahomes. There's a lot of great players that these guys are connected to. So, Anthony, when you're looking at these guys, do you also agree Pep Hamilton and Mike Kafka are the ones to beat?
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those 2 candidates. I'm actually obsessed with the idea of either one of those candidates stepping in here for the New York Giants. I'm so excited about this. When Mike Garafolo tweeted and he said the finalists, the 3 finalists for the Giants OC job, and I saw Pep Hamilton and Mike Kafka, I was like, no freaking way, dude. This is so exciting to me. Like you mentioned, Mike Kafka worked with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes gives him a lot of credit. If you go search Mike Kafka on Google, Patrick Mahomes and Mike Kafka, you're going to find a lot of really nice quotes from Patrick Mahomes about Mike Kafka. He basically says he's not the player that he is today if not for working with Mike Kafka in Kansas City. So that right there is a really glowing review from the best quarterback in the NFL right now, right? Arguably, Patrick Mahomes is that. So, I mean, when you take a look at that, the history that Mike Kafka's had there, and then you take a look at what Brian Daboll was able to do with Tierney and the Bills with Josh Allen, and then you just kind of think, wow, the Bills had arguably the best passing attack in the NFL this past season, rivaled by maybe only the Kansas City Chiefs. So these are two teams with the best passing attacks in the NFL. And the idea of taking the quarterback's coach from both of those teams, actually, and the offensive coordinator from the Bills, the offensive guru mastermind that helped architect that freaking offense, and then you just combine those, you combine aspects of the Chiefs and the Bills offense, you might be you might be striking oil, you might be striking gold. That sounds incredible. But then again, you go ahead and you look at Pep Hamilton, and you can't go wrong with that either. Andrew Luck, man. Andrew Luck was Andrew Luck was arguably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL when he was in the league, right? He was phenomenal. And who helped develop him? Pep Hamilton. And Pep Hamilton also helped develop Andrew Luck. If you go on Wikipedia right here, it says he was an integral part of the success of Justin Herbert. That's what Pep Hamilton was, an integral part of the success of Justin Herbert. And then, of course, Davis Mills. We saw a lot of great things from him this year. The 2021 Texans were a shit show, really bad team, but they managed to get the most out of all those players. And one of those players in particular, Davis Mills, they got a lot out of that rookie quarterback. 3rd-round pick. No one expected him to play up to the level that he played up to. And Pep Hamilton played an integral role in getting him to accomplish that. So Pep Hamilton should have an offensive coordinator job somewhere in the NFL right now. He doesn't. He's a quarterback's coach. He's been bouncing around from a couple of teams, but he should be an OC. And if he's the Giants OC, I will be thrilled about that. This is a guy that was the OC for the Colts with Andrew Luck. I mean, that team was in the playoffs every single year, basically. They were top 5 in the league in scoring almost every single year and passing yards and all that great stuff. And also, I think this is really interesting. He also does have experience as a head coach and general manager for the DC Defenders in the XFL. Sorry, but I think that's really interesting because he's got like more experience than your normal offensive coordinator candidate, right? Like he was a head coach and a general manager. Granted, it was not in the NFL; it was in a different league. But Pep Hamilton, man, he must be a leader amongst men if he was able to rise to those ranks in the XFL. He knows what he's doing. And I think you look at his career history, you look at Mike Kafka's career history. The thing with Pep Hamilton, I think he's a lot more established in his career. I think he's proven a lot more. He's worked with far greater talents all across his career. But with Mike Kafka, you read up on him, they call him the next rising star in the NFL. Like, this is one of those guys, how Sean McVay was a quarterback's coach, then he eventually became a head coach, one of the best in the league, right? Same thing with Zach Taylor, was a quarterback's coach, ended up becoming one of the best head coaches in the NFL. But now you're taking a look at Mike Kafka. You could see a very similar line of succession in his career that those two guys that I just mentioned had, right? Mike Kafka could be that next grandiose head coach one day. And I think that's really exciting. So if the Giants do decide to go with Mike Kafka as OC, that's a great get. Again, combining the Chiefs and the Bills offenses together and trying to build something special for Daniel Jones or whichever quarterback steps in here next. I love that idea. But of course, you bring in Pep Hamilton, you know that you're going to get great development out of any quarterback that you have starting this year. If Daniel Jones is the start in 2022 and Pep Hamilton is there, I can guarantee you that Daniel Jones is going to have the best season of his career. So glowing reviews that I've just given of both of these candidates. I don't even think it's necessary to mention the third candidate. I feel like it's going to come down to these two because they're just so far and away the best candidates of the bunch. But I'm really excited. I know that we're getting a decision by the end of the week, and I just can't wait to see what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly, like you said, you can't really go wrong with either of Pep Hamilton or Mike Kafka. And I have to say, if the modernizing of the offense will also benefit, the offense is going to benefit as a whole. It really, really helps that they're both coming from offenses that had pretty good years. Houston's offense was not supposed to be good. Their offensive line was not good. They did not have the best. It really was just phenomenal to see how Houston elevated their style of play, elevated their game, targeted downfield, did unique things to try and create points. And it really always comes down to coaching. When you look at players, individual players, you're like, Daniel Jones has talent, right? He has decent arm. He can run. He can do things. The coaching has just been abysmal. He had 24 touchdowns in his rookie year. We said, okay, maybe we got something in this guy. And then he jumped off a cliff and just nosedived to being an average to below average quarterback. And it's because of coaching. It is always because of coaching if a player succeeds or not. You think Patrick Mahomes would have succeeded with a Giants coaching staff? multiple years. You think Josh Allen would have been as good as he is with the Giants coaching staff the last 4 years? There's no way in hell you can convince me any elite quarterback that has been developed in the last 5 years would have been this good with the Giants. It's just, you can't do it. It doesn't happen. You need cutting edge analytics. You need cutting edge modernized offensive systems. You need cutting edge coaches who know how to develop elite quarterbacks. Pep Hamilton knows. Mike Kafka knows. Brian Daboll knows. All those guys, and throwing Shea Tierney in that category as well, because he's worked with Josh Allen too. Either of those two guys, it's a home run out of the park. Now, Anthony, the best point that you made, in my opinion, was that the experience Pep Hamilton has gives him an advantage. It gives him an edge. He's seen many different schemes, many different quarterbacks. Mike Kafka has developed one elite quarterback, and that is none other than Patrick Mahomes. Pep Hamilton was there with Andrew Luck when he was a stud. Jay Cutler when he was pretty good. Justin Herbert in his rookie season, a number of other quarterbacks, Matt Hasselbeck, Chad Pennington. There's a ton of guys he's worked with. He's seen every type of quarterback, and he knows how each one is supposed to work and what works for them and strengths and weaknesses and how to iron those out. So based on an experience, factor, I would say that Hamilton has the edge. Based on a more modernized, more recent development of an elite quarterback, I'd say Kafka has the edge, spending multiple years with Patrick Mahomes. And Hamilton was only with the Chargers for Justin Herbert's rookie season. So it really depends. Like I said, you can't go wrong. Both have their weaknesses. Both have their strengths. Hamilton's traveled across the NFL. He's been a journeyman throughout his career. In terms of being an assistant or being an OC or whatever it might be, he's been everywhere. Some might say that's a negative. Some might say he can't retain a job. Some might say he didn't develop within a system. Who knows? Maybe assistants are all gone and go all over the place all the time. And then you have Mike Kafka, who's been with the Chiefs for the majority of his professional career. So, and he's only 34 years old, by the way. 34 years old. That is so young to be potentially an offensive coordinator. He is as young and modern and up to times as it gets. So, keep that in mind as well, guys. But I think that's kind of what we've hit on everything here in terms of these candidates. Chad O'Shea from Cleveland, definitely another guy to keep your eye on. He's a finalist. More of a run-heavy scheme with Cleveland. Didn't really do that great of a job developing Baker Mayfield, as we've seen. So I definitely think that Baker may have, some of it may be self-inflicted wounds or offensive coordinator or scheme or personnel around him. But they have a phenomenal offensive line. A quarterback should be able to succeed behind that line. Baker Mayfield just doesn't have a great arm. It just be more physical. He doesn't have a great arm on the deep ball. So that's something to keep in mind of as well. But guys, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. As always, make sure to like and subscribe below on the Fireside Giants YouTube channel. Much love as always, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.